So, we all knew things were getting heated in the WNBA, but now we're talking about potential civil rights violations. The stakes just got nuclear. It started as whispers. Then those whispers became headlines. And now, with the Wall Street Journal stepping into the ring, things have shifted from sports drama to something way bigger. Legal territory, federal intervention, lawsuits, congressional hearings, the kind of stuff that doesn't just blow up locker rooms but could shake an entire league to its core. If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. And at the center of it all, you already know, Caitlin Clark. Let's rewind for a second. Caitlin Clark didn't walk into the WNBA like a normal rookie. She rewrote the playbook. Ratings up 366%. App engagement up 613%. Merchandise sales, 601% spike. She didn't just join the league. She transformed it. She turned Tuesday night games into national events. She made people care. And yet, what did she get in return? Not protection, not support, not the backing you'd expect for someone who practically rebuilt the league's brand overnight. Instead, she got hacked, shoved, bruised, and battered. No whistles, no league-wide response. Just more expectations, more games, more silence. According to reports, Caitlin Clark has absorbed 17% of all flagrant fouls in the WNBA this season. That's not just a tough season. That's targeting. And now, experts are asking the question that changes everything. Is the WNBA violating her civil rights? Yeah, let that sink in, because what was once brushed off as rookie hazing or adjusting to the physicality of the pros is now being examined through a legal lens, one that sees beyond missed calls and rough play, one that recognizes patterns of discrimination, negligence, and systemic failure to protect an employee. In this case, a young woman generating millions for the league. Legal scholars are comparing Caitlin Clark's situation to Title VII workplace violations, laws that are designed to protect employees from hostile environments. And yes, while the WNBA is a sports league, it's also an employer. That means it's legally required to provide a safe, non-discriminatory workplace. And when a star employee is repeatedly harmed and that harm is ignored, it crosses into dangerous territory. Think it's a stretch? Ask yourself this. If a top-performing employee at any other company were repeatedly harassed, physically targeted, and left unprotected, while her employer looked the other way, what would happen? Lawsuit, public fallout, accountability. So why should sports be any different? Let's break down what the Wall Street Journal is hinting at. They suggest Clark is operating in a hostile work environment, that she's being treated differently than her peers, held to different standards, targeted physically, and left without the safety net a league is supposed to provide. And here's the twist. It's not just about her stats or star power. It's about the visible inaction by league leadership. Officials swallow whistles. The league fails to intervene. There's no public commitment to her protection, despite the clear data pointing to her being the most fouled, most targeted player in the league. And it's not just a bad look anymore. It could be illegal. Legal experts are now referencing landmark decisions, cases like Harris versus Forklift Systems, that define workplace harassment as behavior that creates an environment intimidating, hostile, or offensive. You don't need broken bones to prove harm. You need a pattern, repeated behaviors, a lack of response. Caitlin Clark's situation fits the bill. And let's talk about the optics, because that's where things get even messier. Caitlin Clark is a white woman in a league that has long been shaped by black culture and black athletes. That dynamic, while complex, is also real, and it's led to layered conversations about race, recognition, and who gets protected. Players like Aya Wilson have openly spoken about disparities in treatment, and while her point was that black women haven't always been treated fairly, a valid and essential critique, there's now a growing concern that the pendulum has swung in an unhealthy direction. That Caitlin, because of her visibility and outsider status, is being targeted not just as a star, but as a symbol of a changing league. When physical aggression becomes coded with identity politics, and the league fails to enforce rules equally, what's left is chaos. And chaos breeds lawsuits. So when you combine the physical harm, the emotional toll, and the failure of officials to enforce basic protections? That's not just bad management. That's grounds for federal investigation. Now, cue the fallout. Because the Wall Street Journal didn't just drop this story to stir up drama. Their sources are pointing to potential for congressional hearings, Department of Justice inquiries, lawsuits from Clark or her camp, even antitrust questions. If it's proven that the league has created an unsafe environment or uneven playing field that directly impacts one of its highest earners. If any of that sticks, the consequences could be massive. Sponsors might walk. TV deals could shift. The league's special status as a partner with the NBA and a unique entity could face legal scrutiny. And for a league still finding its financial footing, that could be devastating. But here's the irony. It didn't have to get to this point. All the WNBA had to do was protect its biggest star the way it would protect any other high-value asset in a functioning business. Set standards, enforce rules, acknowledge when something's not right. Instead, they let Clark be the lightning rod. Let her take the hits. Let her absorb blame, ridicule, and pain, while still holding her up as the face of the league. That's not leadership. That's exploitation with a PR smile. And players like Sophie Cunningham have started calling it out. She's one of the few who's used her platform to say the quiet parts out loud. Clark isn't being protected. Not on the court. Not by refs. Not by the league. And the fans? They've noticed too. When Clark missed time due to injury, All-Star Game ratings dropped by 55%. That's not just proof of her value. It's a flashing neon sign that says, you are putting your future at risk. So what happens next? Well, if the legal murmurs grow louder, the league may be forced to act, not just with fines or behind-the-scenes handshakes, but with real structural reform. They may need to revise their officiating protocols. They may need to set up a new standard for player safety enforcement. They may have to finally confront how they treat their stars, all of them, regardless of race, seniority, or fan base. And most urgently, they'll need to decide whether they're a league that thrives on spectacle or a league that builds a sustainable future. Because Caitlin Clark has already given them the numbers, the visibility, the momentum. Now it's their move. Will they protect her? Or will they watch the foundation she helped build start to crack under the weight of their silence? One thing's for sure, this isn't just about basketball anymore. It's about power, responsibility, and the very soul of the WNBA. The warning signs were never subtle. From the moment Caitlin Clark stepped onto a WNBA court, she wasn't just a rookie with talent. She was the storm, the spectacle, and the scapegoat. And now, with civil rights being thrown into the conversation, the league's silent treatment isn't just problematic. It's potentially unlawful. Let's talk about what's actually at stake here. Because this isn't just a drama between fans and foul calls. This is about whether the WNBA has created and knowingly allowed a system where its brightest asset is being physically targeted and emotionally taxed beyond reason. If those conditions exist and continue unaddressed, then yes, this becomes a civil rights issue. And when civil rights are involved, no amount of PR damage control can stop what comes next. Congress doesn't care how many tickets you sold last week. Investigators don't care how many times Clark went viral on TikTok. Courts only care about facts, and when those facts point to a hostile work environment, legal action doesn't just become possible, it becomes inevitable. And the real kicker? The evidence is right there, playing out on national TV, in front of millions. Flagrant fouls, no whistles, targeted physicality, dismissive statements, unchecked escalation, silence from leadership. That's not speculation, that's a pattern. And legal patterns are what lawsuits are made of. Zoom in on that term, hostile work environment. It's more than just a buzzword, it's a legal threshold. And if Caitlin Clark's treatment checks the boxes, the WNBA is on thin ice. Because this isn't just a question of whether things feel unfair. It's about whether a documented culture of violence, harassment, or mistreatment is allowed to continue with no meaningful intervention from the people in charge. You think about it like this. If Clark were in an office job, sitting at a desk, facing repeated physical intimidation, and getting ignored every time she reported it, what would happen? She'd have a case. So why When the workplace happens to be a basketball court, does that logic disappear? Because it shouldn't. Not anymore. And let's be real, it's not just the officials. It's not just the players defending her a little too aggressively. It's the indifference from league leadership, the refusal to publicly address the imbalance, the inability to say enough. That silence, that's complicity. And in civil rights law, silence often carries just as much weight as action. Now, let's talk about intent. Does the WNBA mean to harm Caitlin Clark? Probably not. But intent isn't always necessary for harm to occur. And under civil rights law, if an organization allows discriminatory or hostile conditions to exist, even if by negligence, it's still liable. The WNBA may not be deliberately trying to sabotage Clark, but if they continue to let her be assaulted, mocked, and disrespected without so much as a policy shift, then they've opened the door for accountability, whether they're ready or not. It doesn't help that Clark isn't just another player. She's a player. Her presence has altered the economics of the sport. The ticket sales, viewership spikes, merch runs, none of it happens without her. So if the league is cashing in on her success while failing to protect her on the court, that's not just a moral failing. It becomes exploitation. And guess what? Exploitation of employees, especially when connected to their race, gender, or status, has a long, ugly legal history. Here's where things get even more complicated. Some of the physical play Clark endures, it's not being called because of let them play culture. But when that physicality becomes excessive and targeted, and it's disproportionately happening to a single player, it becomes a different beast entirely. The WNBA has long prided itself on tough, gritty basketball, and that's fine. That's part of the appeal. But toughness does not mean lawlessness. And when one player receives a wildly disproportionate amount of abuse with no intervention, the game stops being fair. It stops being basketball. It becomes bullying on a nationally televised stage. And now the league may have to answer for it in front of people who don't care how passionate your fans are. Let's also not ignore the ripple effects. If the WNBA finds itself under federal scrutiny, it's not just a brand that takes a hit. It's the infrastructure. Every sponsor, every broadcaster, every partner is going to pause and ask themselves, are we aligned with a league that respects its stars? Or are we watching a workplace scandal unfold in real time? The money doesn't care about passion. It cares about reputation. And the WNBA's rep right now, it's shaky, at best. Clark's missed games due to injury aren't just unfortunate. They're expensive. The All-Star Game ratings nosedived. Engagement dipped. Merch sales slowed. Fans vocalized frustration. You can chart the financial hit in real time, and all of it connects back to a single player whose safety was never guaranteed. That kind of dependency on one athlete is already risky, but neglecting her protection while leaning on her success, that's reckless. It's like balancing your entire business on a glass table and then acting shocked when the cracks start to show. But here's the part that really should keep league execs up at night. If this situation leads to a formal investigation, if the Department of Justice, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or even a congressional subcommittee decides to look closer, it won't stop at Clark. She's a catalyst. But the probe would cover policies, internal communications, referee directives, coaching guidance, everything. And if the investigators find proof that Clark was treated differently and that leadership failed to act, the entire league structure could be questioned. They might even reconsider the WNBA's semi-protected status. They might ask if the league's partnership with the NBA is enabling unequal treatment. They might review whether antitrust laws apply, or whether players should unionize under different terms. In short, one player's mistreatment could lead to total restructuring. And as for Caitlin Clark, she hasn't said much publicly about this specific legal angle. And why would she? She's still playing, still competing, still showing up every day, even when the system fails her. But her silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. Because if this does go legal, her restraint will matter. The narrative will show that she never asked for special treatment, that she showed up, worked hard, and tried to handle things the right way. And yet, she was still targeted, still hurt, still let down. That's a powerful story. One that any jury, legal or public, will understand. The WNBA now has two options. Wake up. Start protecting players. Set hard boundaries on physical play. Demand consistency from officials. Address internal resentment that leads to targeting. Own their mistakes. Make structural changes before someone else forces them to. Double down. Pretend it's all noise. Say Clark needs to toughen up. Keep letting fans argue online, while ratings fall and lawsuits pile up. Only one of those paths ends well. Because this isn't just a PR crisis. It's a crisis of integrity. And Caitlin Clark, whether she meant to or not, has just become the most important test case in WNBA history. This league says it wants to grow, to go mainstream, to stand beside the NBA as an equal. Well, this is what the big leagues deal with. Accountability, labor law, player protection, public scrutiny. You can feel it in the air now. This isn't just about basketball anymore. It's not about a couple hard fouls or a missed call or even one star player being mistreated. This is about a system, years in the making, now on the brink of collapse under the weight of its own contradictions. And at the center of it all, still standing tall despite it all, is Caitlin Clark. But how long can she hold the line before something gives? Because here's the truth the WNBA can't escape. You can't build a league on the back of a generational star and then turn around and act like she's just another rookie when it suits you. You can't plaster her face on jerseys, banners, commercials, and then act surprised when the spotlight she brings exposes everything the league's been trying to ignore for years. And now that spotlight is getting brighter and hotter, and the cracks are beginning to show. Let's talk about the referees for a minute. Because while they're technically neutral, the inconsistency in officiating around Clark has become so glaring, so obvious, that it's starting to feel like part of the story itself. Game after game, Clark gets shoved, checked, elbowed, hip thrusted, knocked to the floor. And game after game, the whistle stays silent. Now, some say it's just letting them play. But somehow, those same defenders get bailed out when they flop against her. Those same players throw their hands up and get rewarded with soft calls. And what does Caitlin get? Nothing. Or worse, she gets blamed for not adjusting. It's gaslighting at a professional level. Because if a male rookie, let's say someone like Luka Doncic or Trae Young, was treated this way their first year in the NBA, there would have been a full-blown officiating review, media outcry, and probably a rules committee meeting. But in the WNBA, just silence, shrugs. It's a physical league. Translation, get over it. But it's not just officials. It's not just the league. There's a deeper issue here. A cultural rot that has been allowed to fester inside the WNBA for too long. Call it resentment. Call it gatekeeping. Call it internal sabotage. Whatever name you give it, the truth is this. Caitlin Clark is facing pushback not just from opponents, but from within. From players who feel like she hasn't earned it. From veterans who spent a decade grinding in silence and didn't get the cameras, the sponsorships, the sold-out arenas. And listen, that frustration is valid. For years, women's basketball was criminally undercovered, underpaid, and underrespected. And now, along comes this white rookie from Iowa, and suddenly everyone cares? Of course there's tension, but that tension is being weaponized. Instead of working with her to elevate the league, some are working against her out of pride. And instead of diffusing that tension, league leadership has allowed it to grow unchecked. In a league this small, every bit of internal division magnifies. And Caitlin Clark? She's becoming the target for all of it. She's the mirror, the lightning rod, the scapegoat, all at once. So where does this go from here? If the WNBA continues down this road, ignoring the warning signs, brushing off legitimate concerns, prioritizing brand over people, they're not just risking a lawsuit, they're risking a collapse. Because you can't keep selling a product when the star ingredient is being poisoned from within. And fans see it. They feel it. That's why All-Star Game ratings tanked the moment Caitlin was pulled out. That's why social media blew up with outrage after each hard foul. That's why sponsors are starting to quietly ask questions behind closed doors. This isn't a fan-fueled drama anymore. This is institutional mismanagement, the kind that can kill a league if it's not corrected in time. And here's the part that should really worry them. What if Caitlin Clark doesn't walk away from the game, but walks away from them? What if she finishes her rookie contract and decides, I don't need this league. I'll take my talents to Europe, or to an off-season league that pays me more, or to broadcasting, or to anywhere that actually respects my body, my brain, and my brand. Because right now, her value is undeniable. She's the reason the WNBA app exists on millions of phones. She's the reason half of America can name a single Fever player. She's the reason girls are showing up in gymnasiums asking for her jersey, not just a ball. And if the WNBA lets that slip away, they don't just lose a player. They lose momentum. They lose fans. They lose credibility. It becomes a cautionary tale for every future phenom. What should they have done? Simple. The moment she entered the league, they should have made it clear. This is not just another player. This is a cultural shift, and we protect cultural shifts. We nurture them. We support them so they can support the sport in return. They should have built a policy around rookies absorbing excess physicality. They should have assigned senior referees to her games, ones trained to handle high-pressure matchups. They should have addressed player resentment privately before it spilled onto the court as flagrant fouls and sneering interviews. And most of all, they should have told her, we have your back, because right now, it looks like no one does. The clock is ticking. Federal agencies are watching. Legal experts are circling. The media's attention is sharpening. Every rough play now carries more weight. Every uncalled foul becomes a data point. Every official shrug becomes a footnote in a growing legal file. If the WNBA doesn't course correct now, they risk becoming the story no league wants to be. The one that found its future, then fumbled out of pride, negligence, and silence. Caitlin Clark won't say any of this herself. That's not who she is. She's classy, quiet, focused. She lets her game talk. But you can see it in the way she limps off the court after taking another hit. You can see it in her teammates' eyes when they confront refs on her behalf. You can hear it in the fan chants, the angry tweets, the analysts finally saying what everyone's been thinking. This isn't right. She's not asking for special treatment. She's asking for fair treatment. And if the league can't give that to her, then they don't deserve her. The only question left is this. How many more bruises will it take before the WNBA wakes up? How many missed games? How many headlines? How many federal inquiries? Because time is running out. And if they let this go any further, Caitlin Clark may survive this era, but the league that failed her might not.